Thank you for joining us here for the third in our Rethinking series. This week, we're going to be talking digital, and in particular, supercharging brand experiences before, during, and after. So we're very excited to share some thinking with you, as I say. And I think just as a sort of a pre-warning for this, there's not a mention of Christmas in sight. So whether that's a good thing or a bad thing for those of you, I don't know, but just to pre-warn you there. So no, we're super excited to do this. So yes, welcome indeed. For those of you who know us, I'm not going to dwell on this slide. This is who we are. For those of you who don't know us, quick one-liner, we're an integrated marketing agency based in Bournemouth. We're FMCG specialists. So that's as much as I'm going to give you there. If you want to find out any more, by all means, contact us after. But you found us on your way to this webinar, so you obviously know who we are. So yeah, I say thanks for joining, and we hope you find this next hour useful. I'm not going to do most of the talking today. I'm actually going to hand over to the two other people you see in the screen here. So to do that, I'm going to go to Matt first. Matt, would you say hello to everybody and just do a bit of an intro for them?
Yeah, no worries. Hi, I'm Matt Lockhart. I'm head of digital quantum, fairly new into the company. I've been working in digital for over a decade, both agency and digital side, delivering digital strategy across small businesses to global brands. Worked across multiple verticals, including FMCG, pharma, and travel. And my role here at Quantum is just to ensure that we implement a solid digital-first approach.
Nice, and I'm Laura. Hi, everyone. Group Account Director at Quantum. I've been with the business for about 4 years, but I've got kind of 15 years-ish experience in building brands across in-house and agency environments. And my role really is to lead the team to deliver incredible campaigns, but also to make sure we keep clients at the heart of everything we do. And in the context of the webinar, my role requires me to challenge that client partnership team to make sure that we're driving digital first thinking within the agency, and also just really making sure that we, with every brief, we respond to it with digital at its heart.
Thanks, guys. And this is the agenda that you're going to see today. So it's be 3 parts really. So first of all, we're going to look at igniting anticipation. This is all about kind of how we boost awareness and excitement in the early stages of the campaign. Part 2 is going to look at about driving engagement, to making sure that we have our captive audiences and how we drive interaction and build brand salience. Part 3 is about sustaining momentum. This is about exploring ways in which we can engage in audiences and really drive that social interaction and build the brand from there, really. So there'll also be a bit of a time, hopefully, for some Q&A. So any questions that you do have, please do let us know in the chat. I think, as I say, one thing I say, I've pre-warned you about the Christmas. There's nothing to Christmas. Also, what we've been conscious to do here as well is we've been able to really look at kind of real-world live examples that we think are best in class. So there is no of our own case studies here. So it's a free case study free zone. So lots of inspiration, hopefully, for you. And with that in mind, I'm going to hand you over to Laura now.
Amazing. Thanks, James. So yeah, I guess step 1 really is how can we excite and engage our audiences in the lead up to that key campaign moment? And how can we build their anticipation? And I think to start with, we know that psychology tells us that anticipation feeling can stimulate dopamine. It's addictive. And we have a greater desire for that peak moment in a campaign as a result of that. So I think for business and brands, this can touch a number of different things. But as a start, it gives a greater sense of excitement. So while customers wait for it, they feel that greater sense of longing. It means that when they get their hands on it, consumers enjoy that moment of engagement a little bit more. And it also allows us to kind of rise above the noise. There's no better way to outperform or outshine our competitors than through igniting that anticipation in the run-up to a key moment. And finally, kind of they're more likely to remember it positively, and therefore we're building brand love in those moments of affinity. We're creating that engaged audience that all brands aspire to create. And what channels are we talking about, really? I mean, primarily, this is using both existing digital channels that we're all quite familiar with, but also dipping our toes in the water of those new and emerging tech is also really important. So it could be anything from the way that you're using your social media channels to the way that you're hyper-personalizing campaigns, or at best, the way that you might be using augmented reality to deliver difference. And to start with in this section, we've got 3 brilliant examples of how you could do that. So the first is going to look at a social media case study. The second is how we can look at digital out of home and perhaps AR gamification. And thirdly, we've got a nice little influencer collaboration piece to share as well. So firstly then, from a Spotify point of view, Spotify Wrapped is, it launched in 2016, and it's a campaign that's probably familiar to many of you. It's definitely one that's familiar to me. And really, this is about giving users the annual opportunity to reflect and review on their listening habits. So it's pretty ritualistic in its nature. You receive your email and it tells you in quite a kind of pun-filled, upbeat way where your key listening has been throughout that year. And what it does is it kind of gives a gift back to consumers from a Spotify point of view. So it's become a really cherished moment for music enthusiasts, and it creates that year-end surge in the platform that Spotify also really seek.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great campaign. So Spotify Wrapped success really lies in its personal touch. For Spotify users, it's another way to them to share who they are and what they like with their friends and followers on social. For Spotify itself, it's a viral marketing tool, and it gets bigger and bigger every year. It's a huge awareness builder for the brand, and it really piggybacks on the FOMO element. So people who don't have Spotify or use it enough won't have access to this, but people that do interact with it will have the email in their inbox, and they really anticipate this every year, and it really builds that consistent engagement with the product. It becomes a massively hot topic on social media. It comes wrapped up in an email that's easily socially shareable. All of the assets within it are optimized for social as well, so it's an easy click to share mechanism. I mean, so far, in fact, that big brands jump on the back of it as well. We've got Guinness as an example on the screen there, that use that kind of format in their social posts. So yeah, it's a really, really great activation. And in terms of the results here, they really speak for themselves. It's massively successful. I mean, over 400 million tweets in the first 3 days after launch. It was just an exceptional campaign.
And moving on to another example then from kind of drinks giant Coca-Cola. So Coca-Cola launched their Take a Taste platform, their above the line platform, in 2022. But over the last 18 months or so, we've really seen them start to push the boundaries of what the campaign can do. And they established this campaign in September 2023. So they realised that they needed to drive trial of Coke Zero and Cherry Coke Zero specifically within the UK market. And I think for Coke, they've positioned this as really being a campaign for those who refuse to compromise on taste just because they would like to choose a lower calorie or a 0 calorie alternative. And I think while we often see trial driving or sampling campaigns in the business that we're in, this one just had a little something special to offer.
Yeah, absolutely. So consumers here are actually able to change the 3D anamorphic creative on the screens in real time using their mobiles. What they did essentially was scan a QR code on screen. They would then receive a digital bottle of Coca-Cola before receiving an actual physical digital voucher to go and claim that bottle in a Tesco store. I mean, it works really well on digital out of home. Generally, it helps rise above the noise. They're very engaging campaigns. They're more memorable when they're sat on a digital screen as opposed to a more traditional print out of home screen. In terms of the stats behind this, digital out of home increases trust by about 13%, it increases brand consideration by 6%. And actually Generation Z say that billboards that show dynamic content really do capture their attention. So yeah, it's a great activation. On top of that, digital out of home, it auto-utilized gamified AR. This really took it up to the next level and supercharged the whole campaign, the whole experience, creating a memorable and enjoyable interaction with the brand itself. AR generally gives better conversion rates, around 40% increase we see. Dwell time on AR is significantly better than, say, a traditional TV or radio campaign. You're looking at about 75-second dwell time versus 2.5 seconds passive dwell time on radio or TV. And it's not overly difficult to kind of set up a campaign like this. There's plenty of tools that can help self-service purchase, digital out of home through programmatic, for example. You could easily geo-target a campaign like this to go live. This campaign is very, very recent. So in terms of results, we haven't really seen any yet, but we can expect it to have done pretty well.
Thanks, Matt. And an unexpected twist now. We're going to step into the world of influencer marketing with a very, very well-known name. So Snoop Dogg is an incredibly famous man. He has over 83 million Instagram followers, but he's also got circa 40 million apiece across Facebook, TikTok, and X. And with that astronomical reach, brands are obviously knocking at his door every day. And it was a recent campaign that's really championed a content connection in a beautiful way. And it's kind of set the world on fire. So for those who don't know, Snoop is very well renowned for his habitual marijuana smoking. But on the 16th of November, he posted this, and it says, "After much consideration and conversation with my family, I've decided to give up smoke. Please respect my privacy at this time."
I have an announcement. I'm giving up smoke. I know what you're thinking. Snoop, smoke is kind of your whole thing. But I'm done with it. Done with the coughing and my clothes smelling all sticky icky. I'm going smokeless. Solo Stove Fix 5. They took out the smoke. Clever.
So this was a huge success in terms of a campaign to date. It's resulted in mass reach, millions of impressions, loads of brand mentions across a multitude of different media sources. Rolling Stones magazine, NBC, Forbes, The Guardian, all picked up on this. And we estimate to date there's been about 4.7 million likes, well over 100,000 comments. And this is part of a massive marketing push that includes social media, podcasts, some out of home, as well as some other digital activity. And it's all anchored by a 30-second TV ad. The campaign worked really well. It was extremely press friendly and it created a huge buzz. The need to sort of understand why Snoop put that post up meant that people were invested from the start of activation, and using it across social media and creating a moment really helped the story gather momentum extremely quickly. And without sort of social media and the power of social media, it just wouldn't have had the same impact.
Great. So we're going to move through now into the second stage of today's session. So once we've built all that brilliant kind of anticipation, this is now about how once we've generated that buzz, we can continue to drive as much engagement with a brand as possible. And again, you know, there's multiple reasons why the engagement stage is really important, but fundamentally, this is where we take that brand interaction from a passive through into an active engagement. And it's about building loyalty and brand trust. It's about fostering this sense of community and creating advocates who can share your brand values. But ultimately, it also increases the likelihood of conversion. So as with all great things, this is a very kind of commercially sensitive stage of the process. And in terms of jumping in, again, we've got 3 brilliant case studies here to show you with examples of how certain brands have captivated their audiences using digital tech. So I'm going to start with an app loyalty piece before moving through to AI and then finishing on enhanced experiential. And so starting with KFC. So KFC had quite a traditional and outdated loyalty scheme, and it's been struggling to drive impact for them for a little while. But with over 1,100 restaurants across the UK and Ireland, they've got a really big opportunity to drive repeat purchase. And in many ways, that can be a more cost-effective way than recruiting new entrants into the brand. So they're really striving to be known as a vibrant brand, a fun-loving brand. And so they decided to tap into a bit of a nostalgic trend in order to create impact.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that old loyalty scheme was essentially a stamp-based loyalty program. It was still digital, but nowhere near as engaging, sorry. So this program is a lot more fun, a lot more vibrant, a lot more reflective of the brand, and it's a gamified experience as well, which again adds to that level of excitement. The brand really wanted to recreate the fun and memories people had whilst playing arcades, giving people the chance to win prizes when they ordered in restaurants, at drive-through, or via the app. So it has instant, frequent, shareable, and personal rewards, which has just meant that the whole KFC Rewards Arcade has just been a massive success. The app creates a sense of loyalty. It encourages customers to come back, collect points, and continue to use the app. It's also a great way to collect lots of customer data. And from this data, KFC can easily hyper-personalize offers and content based on what people purchase, based on when they purchased, or how they even engage with the content. So it's worked really well as well. So since the revamp, KFC have seen a 53% increase in app downloads, a 26% increase in weekly users, a 40% redemption rate, which is up 6% from the previous app, and 70% of people who use it will recommend it to a friend or family member. So really successful relaunch of a loyalty mechanic.
And next up, and really sticking in with the world of food here, we're going to move on to an inspired and I guess most importantly, consumer insight-driven campaign from Doritos. So as a brand, Doritos have been collaborating with the gaming industry for years. They've been working with gaming brands and they definitely see it as a key audience for them to tap into. But in 2023, they really elevated and took this a little further. They conducted a piece of research that identified that 35% of gamers said the sound of someone snacking annoys them while they're playing games. A further 29% said it affected their performance, and 1 in 5 even said it made them want to log off while gaming.
Yeah, this is a really, really clever campaign. So Doritos really understand their gaming audience, and they obviously commissioned research against this, which fed into their understanding even more. So they provided some excellent value back to their consumers. In exchange for their data, consumers can actually download this piece of software to use. So it's an AI-powered piece of technology that they've coined crunch cancellation technology. So it took 6 months to develop, and essentially it analyzes over 5,000 different crunching sounds and cancels them out when gamers are playing. So they're able to chat with their friends, their teammates online whilst eating their snacks, and the software will essentially cancel those crunching sounds out. Again, this is a very new campaign. So in terms of what it's generating, it's difficult to say, but it's all about the buzz it's creating around the brand. And at the moment, there's a lot of online chatter around this campaign.
Thanks, Matt. And so thirdly, moving on, a kind of final deep dive in the world of engagement via activation is from sock and underwear brand Stance. So Stance have been kind of setting themselves up as a heavyweight in the US for a little while now. So they've sold over 15 million pairs of socks. They've raised over 100 million in equity funding, and they're really dominating in the skatewear market in the US, but they have a challenge around expanding into additional markets. And at the core, the brand is all about its values. It's well known for values that are centered around kind of creativity, personal responsibility, and also gratitude. So they've introduced this quite unique way to take their product to new audiences, but always doing so utilizing digital tech that really stays true to their values.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a real great way to bring technology into a brand activation. So the vending machines themselves were completely custom built, which included a user interface for data collection. So essentially users were prompted to enter their data and place in their actual socks they were wearing to the vending machine in exchange for a brand new pair of Stance socks. The socks they then entered into the vending machine themselves would be recycled. So there's that nice sustainability element in this campaign as well. And it really provides a great value exchange. It could have been taken a little bit further. So these vending machines can easily be hooked up to the internet. So they could have asked for some user-generated content. They could have shared that out on their social medias as well. But nevertheless, it was a great way to capture data and a great way to build brand salience at a brand activation. And again, it worked really well. So it generated strong brand engagement and some good PR across some well-known places. So the Metro, for example, The Drop, and Sneaker Magazine all picked up on this story and ran articles.
And so moving on from brand engagement, kind of the second part of this second section is that there's also many more on the ground tactics that we can use. So things such as digitally powered point of sale that can really help drive that conversion as we get into the pointy end of the funnel. And here we're deep diving a little bit more into our channels. So we're looking at an off-trade example. We've got a lovely example of how to bring brand experience to life in global travel retail, or GTR. And then we're also going to touch on bringing brands to life in the on-trade, so in bars, restaurants, pub venues.
Cool. So yeah, in the off-trade, a really good utilization at digital point of sale is simply using digital screens that retailers are bringing more and more into stores. There's lots of benefits here. There's short lead times to get creative across. There's again, the sustainability aspect, not needing any printed materials. Digital screens tend to also be more engaging, and we've seen sales uplifts. There's been plenty of research done, and retailers see it on average a 17% uplift in sales when they utilize digital screens. But how can we make this better? So what's better than using a static screen? Well, we can use animation on those screens. Again, makes it more engaging. We could also place QR codes on those screens that could link through to additional brand content. Again, just increasing that engagement and adding that additional touch point in before purchase and at point of purchase. But if you really wanted to supercharge the experience, why not use augmented reality? Again, this type of mechanic allows for data capture. It takes its brand experience to the next level and works really, really well. So 72% of consumers who used augmented reality during their shopping stated that they made an unplanned purchase, as well as it just generally being a much more engaging shopping experience. And it's something you just don't see every day in a supermarket. So yeah, definitely a really cool example here you can see in the background running.
And as we move out of traditional grocery environments and into global travel retail, this is a channel where traditionally we've got a stronger dwell time with our consumers. And so we've really got the ability to deepen those digital experiences. And you can see on screen at the moment a wonderful example, which is via Kiehl's, who used tech. They used AR-powered an AR-powered essences table to really develop a much deeper brand experience. And they did this through kind of providing information about product features and increasing engagement. So this is an opportunity to give an awful lot of information about a product, but in a really engaging way. It transforms that passive interaction into something that's much more active and engaging. And it helps to build that brand salience, so keeping the brand front of mind at every possible moment. And you can see here how the user is interacting with that kind of interactive projection mapping to be able to shape their own experience. And we can also see that flowing through into the on-trade as well. So for instance, in bars or drinking venues, and Johnny Walker are one of the first brands who have really been kind of rolling this out. They've implemented interactive tasting table experiences. So these take consumers through a guided tasting experience or brand story using a fully immersive screen. And I guess as well as the enhanced kind of benefit, the obvious benefit of an enhanced experience, the crucial part here from a digital perspective is that this also opens up the doors for data capture as well as data gathering. So what we can do is use this experience both to understand the preferences of our consumers, but then also serve them personalized or targeted content that relates to the experience that they've just had. So all the while helping to push them through the funnel to that moment of purchase.
So continuing with the on-trade examples, we should have something, another example playing on screen now. So another good way to drive engagement at point of consumption and in quite a cost-effective manner is using something like printed foam. So it uses a vegetable pigment, which places images on text on top of a foam layer on a drink. So this could be a cocktail, it could be a pint of Guinness, for example. It could be on top of a coffee even. And visitors could be encouraged to upload their own pictures via an app, and then that gets sent to the machine to print on top of it itself. It could be used as a digital garnish. So Lego had a really cool example where they printed a trigger point on top of the foam itself. Someone would use their phone to scan that as a web-based AR piece The content would be a Lego man walking around the top of the glass, which was, again, really cool, very interactive, really keeps the brand front of mind. You could even have a QR code printed on top of that foam as well. Again, that could link through to online content. Just really, it's a really fun way, socially shareable, and a great way to interact and engage with customers.
And so the final section that we're going to move on to today is about sustaining momentum. So this is that kind of post interaction, whether it's been a purchase or event or a key campaign moment. This is how we're going to start to get people to kind of continue to sustain that momentum. And a quick spoiler alert here, it's all about data. But I guess to start at the beginning, which is what's the importance of sustaining that momentum? And so often we see brands invest lots of time, resource and budget into those first stages. But actually, a quick and kind of really lovely example here is from two drinks giants, Coca-Cola and Pepsi. And Coca-Cola actually paused their global advertising during the worst months of COVID, whereas Pepsi managed to maintain their spend. And put simply, the result of that was a contribution to a 5% net revenue growth for Pepsi and an 11% reduction in net revenue for Coke. So just a nice way, I guess, to bring home that no matter what your size and no matter what your achievements, you really do need to keep going even post that big moment. And if you haven't seen this meme going around LinkedIn, I'll be surprised. But we wanted to share it today because it's a really perfect example of what segmentation kind of used to be. So we've got two individuals here who on the surface have a lot of things in common. You know, they're both born in 1948 and grew up in England. They were both married twice. They're successful, they're wealthy, they like to spend their winter holidays in the Alps, and they like dogs. But the reality couldn't be any more different. We've got King Charles and Ozzy Osbourne. But rather than the traditional means of personalization or segmentation in marketing, we're going to talk a little bit more about hyper-personalization now. And really what we mean by that is where you use unique customer data. So it could be psychographics, it could be real-time interactions with a brand, and you take that data to shape personalized communications, perhaps product recommendations, bespoke discount codes that all fit into that hyper-personalization model.
Yeah, absolutely. And data really is a currency nowadays. So first-party data is massively important, especially as we move towards a cookieless future. The need to have that first-party data is just growing in terms of importance. It allows us to understand our audience really well. And finally, the more data points we have, the better we can tailor our content across the different touch points. So how do we actually develop a deeper understanding of this data? Well, firstly, we could talk to your current customers, so you could send them out email surveys, for example. You can speak to them on socials and engage with them that way and get more information about them. The second way we could do this, we could test different levels of engagement across different segments. So using A/B tests within your current channels with narrow segments and look at what content works really well and how this impacts in terms of click-through rates, in terms of conversions, and use that data to evolve the content moving forward and also give a more granular level of detail to your existing data. And finally, you could interrogate your data for patterns of behavior. So you could use tools like GA4. I'm sure most people have that set up on their websites already. You could use AI software like Power BI that provides some really nice insights into that data through artificial intelligence. And being able to hyper-personalize and use this data properly really does yield strong results. So let's have a look at how some brands are not only meeting but exceeding customer expectations by implementing this hyper-personalization. So we've got 3 examples coming up. One is to do with purchasing data, one looks at survey data, and the final one looks at GA4 data. So the first one we're going to look at is Starbucks. So Starbucks really excel at their hyper-personalization. And with the help of their AI, the brand uses real-time data to send unique offers based on customer preferences. And this is all based on purchasing. So they've got more than 400,000 variations of hyper-personalized messages. So their customers always feel as if they're being communicated to on a one-to-one basis. There's a really good example you may be able to see it in one of the images, where essentially the brand is providing an offer for a drink, but the hookers, they have to go and collect it at 2 p.m. So this offer is discounted their favorite drink, but it pushes footfall into the store when it's less busy after that lunch rush. So it's a really nice way of generating traffic outside of those busy periods.
Great. And so next up, an example of really deepening kind of brand affinity from Naked Wines. So Naked is an online wine subscription community, and consumers are asked to deposit an amount of money of their choice every month. And in retaliation for that, they get access to what they would call kind of hidden gems of the wine world. And they'd receive pay for that quality in a supermarket. And at point of sign up, Naked quizzes their customers to understand their taste preferences. So it asks them a kind of 20-30-second quiz around their palate, their preferences, the kinds of things that they like and don't like. And from that, the first clever step is that it then serves them their kind of perfect starter wine. So it will make a recommendation on what their starter first box of say 6 bottles would be. But from there, they continue to harvest that data. So they harvest it through things like product reviews, referrals to friends, and then they use AI to analyze and to kind of map that data back. And with that, they'll give further recommendations. So they may make a suggestion that because you enjoyed this particular wine, you're 95% likely to enjoy this one. And the result really is that it shows customers that the brand cares about them. It shows them that they're interested in those preferences. But as a customer, it also de-risks my purchase, because I can be pretty confident that if I make a purchase based on my previous data, those recommendations, it's going to be right. Interestingly, what they also do is have a kind of no quibble money back guarantee. So they're relying on the data to be able to generate that benefit for their consumers. But they're also humans at the end of the day. And if there are issues or mistakes, then they have a no quibble. And in terms of results, since they implemented this hyper-personalized response, Naked has benefited from a 7% increase in total conversion of their customer and an 8% increase in gross profit. So quite simply using data to be able to extract additional spend and repeat spend from their customers.
And the final example we have is from L'Occitane. So this is a really simple example, but it's been extremely effective for these guys. So essentially what they did was use Google Analytics data. They analyzed the data and they were seeing between 10 p.m. at night and 5 a.m. in the morning. They had a very small segment of people coming on and hitting the site. And they made a hypothesis based on this that essentially these people likely have trouble sleeping. So they used a pop-up overlay that came up at that period of time for these people, which was advertising a pillow mist spray, which aided sleep. They actually saw purchases of this spray increase across that time period. So it's a really cost-effective way to use personalization. And yeah, it's a great way of looking at analyzing data, for these insights.
And so 3 really lovely examples there of how you can use that data. But I guess if what Matt and I have said hasn't done it to convince you, we wanted to end on just 2 final stats that really demonstrate what hyper-personalization and the use of data can do for your business. So firstly, marketing personalization can reduce customer acquisition costs by 50% and lift revenues by up to 15%. And secondly, from a consumer lens, 78% of consumers say personalized content makes them more likely to repurchase from a brand.
Great, guys. Thank you for that. So we're going to come on to some questions now. But before we do that, I just thought we'd share the results of the poll that we did earlier. So the question was, what was the main barrier for going digital first with your brand experiences? So it looks here like it was a very close call between budget and resource expertise as the key ones there. So I think interesting kind of findings there. And thank you for everyone who completed those. And it kind of brings me on nicely actually to the first question in actual fact, and it relates to the kind of the most recent examples that you guys just shared there, because I think some of them look like they could be quite hefty budgets, sort of work, experience activation. So I guess if you were a brand that had limited budget, can you still do similar stuff?
Yeah, I think the last example we had with the L'Occitane, where they literally just used their Google Analytics data, saw a very narrow segment of individuals were hitting the site at that small period of time, and cleverly activated just a pop-up on site. Is relatively inexpensive to do, but yielded some really good results. I think it's definitely something that can be done on a tight budget.
Yeah, and I guess what I'd add to that is don't challenge yourself to do everything at once. You know, applications like GA4 give us such a wealth of data, but don't feel like you need to use it all on day one. Actually, just identify perhaps your lowest hanging fruit and take action. And as Matt says, that could be something as simple as implementing a time limited pop-up, which is what we saw L'Occitane do. Or it could be building an email campaign based on some of the learnings you got from analysing that data. It doesn't have to be expensive. It will need to have some element of resource, but broadly, it's something that's going to open up a lot of additional avenues for trying.
Great stuff. Thanks, guys. Question, it's less of a question, more just, I think, going back to the Doritos example that we shared earlier, Matt, this is more about the kind of repeating of maybe some of the stats. Are you able to kind of just play back some of the stats that we have around that kind of campaign, if possible? I mean, it might be worth, Laura, if you can go back to that slide, and then maybe just sort of talk around some of the kind of, I guess, the stats that we may have.
Yeah, let me jump back into that one. 2 ticks.
Yeah, I think for that one, the main stats are around the consumer research. So there's not a huge amount of kind of results off the back of that yet. It's an ongoing campaign. It's very, very recent. But the research identified essentially 35% of gamers said the sound of someone snacking annoys them while they were playing. And a further 29% claimed it actually affected their performance, with one in 5, so 20%, actually logging off as a result of someone crunching away on there. So I think they were the main sort of research stats around it. But as I say, it's a very, very new campaign that's actually ongoing at the moment. So in terms of results off the back of it, there's none as of yet.
Yeah.
No, I think what we've definitely seen from day one is a lot of talkability, a lot of noise. So lots of PR coverage, lots of coverage, yes, amongst the gaming community, but also beyond that, which is a great start and a really brilliant positive indicator for the campaign. But definitely seeing the stats to come in terms of kind of revenue uplift will be really interesting.
Definitely. I reckon if they did that poll of the research with the wider population, I'm pretty sure that figure would go up, to be honest. Great stuff. Jumping back to the start, in actual fact, next question. Again, I think going back to the Spotify example, because obviously we see a lot of these sort of subscription services do these sort of wrap up kind of end of year things. What do you think what's beyond the kind of results to make this a really successful campaign?
Yeah, I think for me, you know, we've talked internally about this because lots of other brands like kind of Fitbits or Strava in the health and fitness world, they will serve your data back to you. But I think what Spotify do so brilliantly is they create the storytelling narrative around it. You know, they've really taken the time to include the puns, get creative copywriters working on a narrative that makes it sound fun, exciting, and engaging. And I think that's what really allows them to cut through the noise.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think the fact that it's so easily shareable, it's all packaged up nicely in an email, click of a button to send out that socially optimized content for people's stories, for people to post. It's a really simple mechanic for people to get that content out there as well. And it's just something that's very, very engaging and very personal to that individual. So it's a great way for them to express themselves online.
And I think to Matt's point, we know that consumers, that all of us, in fact, love talking about ourselves. So it gives them an opportunity to exercise that in a way that's pre-packaged and really easy for them to do.
Definitely. And I guess a couple more questions. We've got the last couple of questions. So again, thinking about the sort of the POS kind of examples that we used as well, I think, would you say that kind of looking at this space, this sort of digital POS is becoming increasingly important now versus what it was a few years ago?
Yeah, I think definitely in the world that we work in, so in the kind of FMCG space, what we're hearing brands tell us is that actually retailers and the big grocers are are requiring brands to invest in that digital point of sale for them to be able to unlock more traditional opportunities. So gone are the days where, as a brand, I would look to secure a kind of freestanding display unit only space in a grocer. Actually, now what I need to be able to demonstrate to that retailer is that I've got integrated thinking. So I understand how I'm going to use my digital channels alongside my traditional channels. And actually, I need to invest in that digital, whether it's their email campaigns, their paid ads, or indeed their kind of physical in-store digital POS, to be able to unlock those other opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's got loads of benefits as well using this. I mean, it's much more expensive to create the content, and you can really push it out at scale. I mean, lead times are a lot more reduced as well, and it's just generally more engaging. So I think it's definitely the future and where this signage is going.
Great stuff. And then the final question to put you guys on the spot. This is an interesting one come through, which is a kind of an ROI question in actual fact in it, and it's sort of tapping into our experience as an agency as well. So, and I guess it's sort of framed around sort of, why would we ask, when we're talking to sort of clients, what is it about kind of when we talk about the kind of these new digital experiences, why should kind of brands kind of look to do these new things rather than kind of stay in the sort of traditional space?
I guess if I take it.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, if I take the kind of the consumer lens on that to start with, fundamentally because people are expecting it of you. I think, again, gone are the days that in consumers' minds, brands can send them kind of more traditional only media or repeat their marketing and expect to see any dial shifting difference in that. Our consumers, the consumers of today, are quite discerning. They want our brands to work hard to get their attention. They understand the value of themselves, their purchases, but also, to Matt's point earlier, they understand that their data is also currency. So they're asking us to work hard for it. And I think data, personalization, digital kind of advocacy, that is the way to achieve that.
Yeah, exactly. And the bigger brands are really doing this already, the whole personalization thing. I mean, if anyone just logs onto Netflix, you can see how personalized that experience is. And the expectancy is there now to personalize the content, to really give it that one-to-one strategy. So I don't think you can really get away with kind of that mass marketing, or even really, to a certain degree, the segmented approach.
And I guess just to finish on that one, those final stats speak for themselves. Marketing personalization can actually reduce your customer acquisition cost by up to 50%. And so actually invest in this now, dedicate your resource and an allocation of your budget to this now, and it's going to reduce your customer acquisition costs in the future.
Definitely. One final question I think we have as well, then, this is looking at, I guess, the sort of more aspirational sort of luxury brands as well. So, do we have a perspective around sort of how we can kind of, I guess, elevate the experience when it comes to luxury and kind of aspiration? Which brands do we think are doing a good job in this space as well, with that?
Yeah, so I think for me, in the luxury or premium brand space, it's about delivering that premium feel at every single touch point. So we saw earlier an example from Kiehl's, and also there's an example from Johnny Walker in the kind of premium spirits category. It's about making sure that every single interaction you have with that consumer or that customer communicates that premium feel. So whether that is something like a freestanding display unit in a supermarket, let's make sure it's a brilliant one. But if it's a tasting experience in a bar, how can I use digital to kind of elevate and amplify that? So I think in the premium space, it's perhaps less around using channels to kind of continuously target your consumers. And it's about sitting back and understanding that at those moments of engagement, how can I actually use digital technology to premiumize that experience? And I think those interactive and tasting tables are a really, really good example of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that, and just kind of building it in terms of the actual content itself, just making sure the look and feel of it, it's all shot as high a definition as possible. It's served in a premium way, and yeah, it just gives that really premium high-end look and feel.
Great stuff. I think that's thank you for those questions. I think that was certainly some ones to keep us on our toes, that's for sure. So I think, coming to the end now, I think just to kind of summarize what you, Laura and Matt, have expertly taken you through today. When it comes to sort of digital experiences and activation, it's about igniting anticipation. Again, and this is all of the kind of the boost of awareness, excitement in the early stages. Obviously, it's about driving engagement, making sure that we captivate our audiences, increase those sort of social interactions, and it's about, importantly, sustaining that momentum once we have them, and really exploring ways in which we can kind of continue to engage our audiences and build the brand salience as well. So I think, that hopefully summarizes what you've seen today. Some great examples. I think just before we go, one last poll that we'd love you to fill in, if possible, I think, which will be shared very soon. If you can quickly do that, but yeah, I think all that it leaves me to do before that is to say thank you for joining. We've enjoyed it, enjoyed presenting it to you. If anyone joined late, then we will send you a copy of the recording anyway, so don't worry too much. So you'll be able to have that. Do get in touch if you have any questions. But yeah, go away, enjoy the day, have a great festive period, and we look forward to seeing you again in 2024.